Welcome back, my friends! Hello, everyone. How are you today? So, I am with you here. My name is Nitzan Steinberg, Grandmaster, and we would like to see the round 4 of the FIDE Candidates 2024. I'm really excited to start this video because the candidates tournament, the final of this tournament will bring us the challenger for Grandmaster Dingliran for taking this title, the world champion. So it's unbelievable tournament, and I'm very excited to be here with you. The first game that we will see in this tournament, in this round, sorry, it's Hikaru Nakamura, Hikaru, and another Hikaru against Praggnanandhaa, our player in this tournament. We really like to see him winning it, but let's see. So the first move, e4, e5, knight e3, knight c6, bishop e5, the Ruy Lopez Spanish. My favorite opening for white. I really like it. I also planning to publish very soon book on it. So a6, bishop a4, knight f6, d3 was played. Another move is castle here, and of course bishop e7, rook e1, b5, bishop b3, d6, c3, castle, h3, knight a5, bishop c2, c5, d4, queen c7. So much theory here. Also bishop b7 and rook e8 and knight b8 with Breyer. So much things here to know and to remember. But in this game was played the move d3. Also another move here, possibility to play knight c3. I played it, so I think like 5 or 10 times in my life. Or also very interesting for white. Another move was played with bishop takes c6. I'm not sure that I liked such move, but it's also one option because I really like the bishop on b3 or a4 in the Spanish. So d3 was played by Caro, bishop c5. The point that after bishop takes c6, d takes c6, and after knight e5, it's not so good for white because of queen d4 and double attack here. And after bishop e3, there is queen takes e5, and after d4, just take here, and take here, and of course it's winning absolutely for black. So bishop c6 is not an option for white because of course bishop c6 and takes on e5 is not an option. And Hikaru played the move castle, b5, bishop b3, and h6. H6 really surprised me in this game because I think the most logical move here is d6 with the plan of playing knight a5. Of course d6 is covering this pawn on e5, and now knight a5 can take the bishop on b3. I assume to see here or a4 or maybe a3 with white, or maybe c3, also possibility for white. But h6, I think h6 was an idea of Prague to to move out of the theory here. I think also h6 must be theory, but after h6 Hikaru thought like 4 minutes, so it makes sense. This move, rook b8 and bishop e3. Black took the bishop, takes, and d6. Very easy to play. Takes, queen e1. White wants to put the queen on g3 and somehow to play knight h4, knight f5. And as you can see, the bishop is really strong in this diagonal, and the rook is very strong in this file. So castle h3 was played. It was, like it was. I'm not sure about h3. For example, knight c3 makes sense more for me because you just want to develop your knight. Also knight bd2, for example. And the next moves maybe knight h4, knight f5, because h3 I'm not sure about such move. So h3 was played, knight e7, just bring the knight on g6. Knight c3 was played. Now what do you think about knight h4? Really interesting move because you don't want to let knight g6, and also maybe in the next future maybe to sacrifice the exchange on f6. with some queen g3, knight d2, rook f1, and some attacking ideas. But I'm not sure about this. Maybe bishop e6 is the move, just to to remove this strong bishop from b3. Also c5 makes sense, but I'm not sure. Knight d2. Yeah, it's really interesting move to play knight h4, I think. But Icaro decided to play knight c3, bishop e6, knight d2, queen d7, and I think that is just a, very Jewish position. Rook a8, take on e6, f takes, very symmetrical position. Knight g3, knight g6, queen d1, and the game is just over after 3-time repetition. It seems that Icaro didn't like to press here on Prague, and he decided to draw the game very, very in the opening. 24 moves for this game is really, really very very short game. So let's move to the next game. Maybe it will be more interesting to see. The game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Vidit. Jan Nepomniachtchi took here in this game, in this round, our champion of this match, of this round. So it was a really, really crazy game. I really like to see this one. So let's see it together. E4, E5, knight E3, knight C6, and bishop E5. Second in a row, second in a row, Rui Lopez Spanish from Jan Nepomniachtchi. Knight F6. Do you know how this variation called? The Berlin system. Berlin system, I can tell you that there is a very, very strong book by a grandmaster from Israel, Michael Royce. Really recommend to see it, but it's really, really important to know a lot of variations here, also for white, also for black. It's really important to know such opening, because the best players in the world are playing the Berlin defense here. As Vidit, he wants to draw the game, he wants to equalize the position. So Berlin system now is calling, one of the best options for black to equalize the game in the opening. So castle 94. In this position, I played, for example, rook e1, knight d6, bishop f1. There is possibility to play also knight takes e5, knight takes, rook takes, bishop e7, bishop f1, castle d4 or knight c3. Also possibility knight e8, knight d5, bishop d6, rook e1, c6, knight e3, bishop c7, knight f5. There was, there were a lot of games in this position. d5, knight e7, take two bishops, but it's really equal position. So a lot of games here. Also after 96, it's really interesting to see this move: a4, bishop e7, for example, knight c3, castle d4, and in these days I think e4 it's really equal. Knight takes, rook takes, a6, for example, bishop d3, d5, rook e1 and knight b4, bishop f1 and bishop f5 if I remember correct, c3 and just knight c6. And it seems to be fine for black. And yeah, so in this game was played the main line in this position: d4, knight d6. Here, maybe you remember such games that finished very soon after d takes e5, knight takes b5, a4, knight bd4 takes, queen takes, d5, e takes d6, queen takes, and perpetual 3-time repetition here. So a lot of games were finished like this one. So d4, Jan Nepomniachtchi wants to go for the end game. Bishop takes c6, d takes e5, knight f5, takes, and knight c3. After bishop d7, the point of this move was to play king c8, b6, king b7, and after it c5, bishop c6. And black claims that he has two bishops, and of course he is right. But white wants to play very fast because this maneuver with the king is taking time. So let's see how Jan is playing in this position. h3 was playing, h6, and now Jan playing the move g4 very fast. and now knight e7 and knight h2. Also very fast move by Nepomniachtchi. Of course, he was in his prep. And here Vidit is thinking like 36 minutes in this position on g5. Very interesting move. He wants to develop the bishop from g7 to play knight g6, and like this pawn will be very very weak in the next future. But Nepomniachtchi, after 1 minute, is playing the move f4, g takes f4, bishop takes f4, and bishop e6. Also 11 minutes for Vidit to play this bishop e6 move. 94 was played. Also, Nepomniachtchi is playing very fast, very, like with a lot of confidence. He knows his prep. He's playing, like from the book, and it's brilliant to see him. He's playing just brilliant, like very fast, and wow, 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 wow. Nepomniachtchi, b6. So 94 was to maybe to jump on c5, maybe to jump on f6. So Black is playing, like I think it's really logical move b6, just to avoid knight c5. Also preparing king c8, king b7, knight f3. Jan is bringing the knight into the game. c5, knight f6, king c8, king g2. This was a brilliant move, I think, by Jan. He's just bringing another piece into the center. The king in endgames is very important to develop. And king g2, and after king b7, another move with the king g3. I think it's really, really nice to see such moves by Nepomniachtchi. And of course, to understand that in endgame, you need to bring the pieces into the center. Of course, the king, because there is no queens in the board, so you can feel free to bring the king into the center. So a5 was played, a3, a4, and rook a d1. So all white pieces are playing, but the black pieces are not developed, right? The bishops here is not so good. The rook and the rook here, I'm not sure how can I say that they are working. So knight c6, bringing the knight, and also developing maybe the bishop to e7 in the next moves. c3 was played by Jan, who wants maybe to, like to avoid many moves for the knight, maybe knight d4, maybe knight a5, a knight a5 of course possible, but c3 is like to, to bring the pawn into very important position here. Also, to put the pawn on black square, because this bishop on e6 will be very good and strong here, because there are no piece that can move it from e6. So bishop e7 was played, and knight h4. White wants to put the knight on f5 maybe, and this is the maneuver. So h5, g5. Now the knight on h4 is not doing so much things, but maybe g6 will be the next move for white. So rook a5. Rook a5 wants to bring the rook from b5 to attack this pawn, the weak pawn on b2, and maybe also in some variation to play c4 and to open this row for the rook, and maybe to like to attack the pawn on e5. So rook d1, very strong move, I think, by Jan. Already just put another piece on the e5, very very strong and important pawn for white. Rook b5 and bishop c1 was played. I think in this position rook f2 was for me more than logical, because you just bring the rook to save the pawn on b2. Of course rook e2 is not working because of bishop c4. So so bishop c1 was played. The point of bishop c1 is also to defend the pawn on b2, and maybe to play the move knight f5 or maybe g6. So rook b3 was played, and g6. Black just like is very scary for g7 and queen. So what to do? Fg, knight g, rook d8 was played. Knight takes e7, knight takes e7, and like in chess, a lot of games were drawish after you see that this black bishop against the white bishop from the black side. So this situation is very complicated to understand. When you have like bishops that they are not in the same color, it's not so easy to defend such positions, because when you have this bishop on c1, there is no bishops in these squares for the black. So if you are attacking with this bishop, it's really important to understand that you cannot defend because you don't have this bishop. And of course, it's the same in the other side. So knight takes h5, take the pawn, rook d3, rook f3, takes, take on h3, and e6. Very strong move by Jan. He wants to continue to developing and continue to move far away with this pawn on e6, and this is the promise. You know, like this is the promise win for white, to bring this pawn to a queen, and maybe he succeed to do it. b5 was played, bishop g5, just want to move this knight from e7, knight d5, e7, I want to promote, and bishop d7 was played. And now the good question that you must ask, that what if I'm doing queen? So bishop takes, rook takes d8, and just rook d2. And you know, in such position, when you have 4 pawns against 2 pawns, and this pawn is very weak and this pawn is very weak, I'm not sure who is better in this position, because you know, rook e5, c6, the next move will be in rook c3, rook b3, and the pawns are running, so who will win this game? So Jan Nepomniachtchi is not playing the move e8 queen, and is playing the move rook d1, king c6, and king e4. And in this position, I think it was the last moment maybe to survive this endgame for Vidit, but he don't have so much time in these moments. He has like 4 minutes for 4 moves, and he decided to play the move bishop e8. And this was the mistake, but let's see what happened after knight takes e7. So bishop takes e7, and here rook b2. And these 4 pawns against 2 pawns are not so easy to defend for black, but you know, it's much more easier to play, because rook b3 is a threat. He wants to grab this pawn and also to grab this pawn, and I'm not sure if also you can remove all of these pawns. I think and I assume that it will be an easy draw for black. And so it's not so easy, of course, but this was the way for Vidit maybe to play for an equalize. So after rook d1 was played king c6, king e4, and now, as I said, bishop e8 was the mistake. Rook takes d5 and bishop h5 and just bishop c1, and this rook is doing nothing. And also with this bishop c1, you are threatening this bishop on h5, bishop g6, king e5, b4, and king f6. Brilliant move. Of course, king d5, king g6, and the next move will be a queen. After bishop b takes a3, queen, and a2, there is of course queen takes a4 if I want, and also king f5 and checkmates here, some threats. So this is winning, and of course after b takes a3, king g6, and a takes b3, queen, of course it's also winning for white. I think also c4, for example, is winning. Takes here, queen takes a4, rook b4, queen c2, and bishop takes b2. And he played the move bishop e8, rook d8, b takes a3, b takes a3, bishop d7, and king f7. And of course, the next move will be rook takes d7. So, for example, rook takes c3, rook d7, rook f3 check, and king e6. And the game is over, because the next move will be a queen, a promote. And Jan Nepomniachtchi is winning the game. Vidit resigned, and it was crazy game to see. Jan Nepomniachtchi is winning with white pieces against the Berlin defense. Wow! So let's see the third game for this round. We have Fabiano Caruana against Gukesh. e4, e5, 93, 96, bishop c4, the Italian game. Wow, it was crazy to see. If Fabiano played the move bishop b5, it was a third in a row to see the Ruy Lopez Spanish. But Italian game, castle knight f6, d3, d6, c3, makes sense, a6, black wants to put the bishop on a7, a4, bishop a7, h3. All of these are very known, both of them are playing fast. Knight b2, rook e8, b4, bishop e6, bishop takes, rook takes, and queen c2. Rook e8 was played after 11 minutes of thought for Gukesh. I think black wants to play the move knight e7 and knight g6, of course. The problem is after knight e7 that knight g5 is just winning the game because the rook is under attack and there is no possibility to move away from this one. So rook e8 was played, rook e1, h6, and d5. So white wants to bring the knight on g3, knight f5, and somewhere attack the black king. But black is playing into the center, d5, maybe wants to push d4, maybe wants to take on e4 and playing in this file. So knight g3 was played and b5. Crazy move, I think, with the black pieces. Knight f5 was played, d takes, and knight e7. And in this position, I think white played the move knight takes e5. He wants to grab this pawn, but I'm not sure, about this thing that Fabiano played in this moment. Like it's really good solution to play in this position knight 3 h4. Why? Because I just want to bring the queen here, rook d1 maybe, queen f3, and it's not so easy to defend this position by black. So knight 3 h4, I think it was a good solution for white, because knight e5, it's really, like after knight takes f5 takes and c5, or maybe for example knight d5 also, like it simplifies the position. It's really simplifies the position. And right, white has a one pawn up, but it's nothing in this position because this bishop is strong, the rook is doing good job, queen f6 will be, queen h4 maybe, and this pawn, these double pawns, and okay, you have one pawn up, but it will not give you the win in this position. So knight e5 I think was a bad decision by Fabiano. Knight 3 h4 was much more stronger. I think takes, for example. I don't know, maybe queen d7, maybe c4 in this position, bishop b2, or maybe, like I said, queen e2, queen f3, and with such ideas like knight h6 or queen g3. And this knight is doing very, very strong position here on f5. So knight e5 was played, takes, c5, simplifies the position. Just black wants to replace all the pawns, and like this pawn on f5, the one pawn up will not give the win. So bishop f4 takes on a4, knight c6, queen d7, takes, take on a7, and now a very strong move, c takes b4, very clever by Gukesh. For example, after bishop e3, it's very bad for black. For white, of course, b3 will play queen b2 and knight d5, and like this knight on a7 just bad, and okay, this rook is doing very good job. The knight on d5 doing a great job. Bishop c5, for example, queen f5, knight, oh sorry, knight f4, rook e2, queen e4. I think it will be a game over for white. This knight on a7 is doing nothing. So this c takes b4 by Fabiano, and queen d4, very strong move by Gukesh. For example, queen a7 will be punished by queen takes a4 and queen a6, and also b5 is a threat here. But Gukesh is playing the move queen d4. The point that is attacking also the bishop, also the rook, and also the knight. So after queen c1, queen takes a5, a7 of course, and rook a4, and now there is a possibility just to play queen b7, and there is no taking on a6, and there is no b5. So white has pawn up, but this pawn is nothing here, and black just simplifies the position. Knight d5, bishop g3, f6, bishop d6, queen c6, and yeah, take, rook e1, very strong move, take, and g4, and this is a draw, but like Gukesh needs to prove it, and he's playing king h7, queen c3, queen e4, king h2, checks, some checks here, but you know, white cannot develop his position. As you see, just replacing pawns and taking this pawn, take on a6, and it's a checking, a lot of checks here, and you know, yeah, the game just over very soon because this pawn up is nothing, and yeah, they agreed a draw in the 74 moves. In this position, Fabiano Caruana drew with the Gukesh in the Italian game. Very interesting positions to see, but I think the main you know, like the main decision that Fabiano played takes on e5, like we saw. I think this is maybe was the incorrect, inaccurate, I think, in this game, that maybe could have been much more strong for Fabiano. So let's move to the last game of round 4. Which players did we forget? So we have in white pieces Abasov against Firouza. Let's see. So you know, we already know that Abasov in the white pieces are very you know, like, is strong enough to equalize the position and just to draw the games, and you know, like, is very playing safety with white. So let's see, d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and bishop b4. The Ninja Indian defense. Queen c2, d6 was played by Firouza. e3, castle, bishop d3, and c5. Okay, so in the Nimzo, there is a lot of moves here. For example, f3, you can see here a3, e3, queen c2, also bishop c3, bishop d2, knight f3, there is a move, also bishop g5 an option. So a lot of moves here for white. Also here, I think that, where is my book? Where is my book? Let me find. You know, in the next, maybe in the next video, I will show you. I have here a book that wrote also Grandmaster Michael Royce on the Ninja Indian. I really think, you know, I don't have any things that I, you know, like, earn from this, but I really recommend. I also read this book, and I think it's just amazing book by Michael. So read it. Yeah, it's really good. So bishop b4, queen c2, and d6. I think in Michael books book was castle, if I'm not wrong, or maybe d5, but d6 I'm not remembered such move. So Firouza playing, you know, like, very modern style of this Nimto. e3 castle, bishop d3, c5. D takes and bishop takes c5, knight e3 and d5. It really seems that Firouza is playing, like, you know, on the safe side. Let's do a draw, and I wanted to play in white. So castle, d takes c4, bishop takes c4, knight bd7. You know, like, very symmetrical position. b3 just want to develop with bishop b2. a6 wants to develop also with the bishop from b7. Bishop d3 was played, b5, knight e4, bishop b7, take on c5, take on c5, bishop takes b5. Some, you know, like, some tactics here. Queen takes on b5. Now after queen takes b5, it just losing because of bishop a6, and the rook is trapped on f1. So we play the move rook d1, queen c7, bishop b2, queen c5, bishop takes here, g takes f6. Of course, this is not, it's not weakness the king on g8, because of course king h8, there is an option to play it, rook g8, and just bringing the rook into the game. Rook c1, queen f5, knight d4, queen g5, knight c6, rook a6, h4 was played. White decided to bring this pawn on h4 and just take the pawn on b5, but rook takes a2. For example, queen b7 is just losing mate in 2, right? And queen g2 checkmate. And for example, move like knight e7, king g7, queen b7, queen f2, and it will be a perpetual check here. and the game will be a draw. So in this position, Abasov is playing the move g3, bishop takes c6, queen takes c6, and he decided to take this position for a draw. Of course, these 4 pawns against 3 pawns are equal 100%, but Firouza played it a lot, so let's see how it's gone. So queen takes queen f3, queen g6, rook e1, take this rook a4 was played once just to play rook g4, rook f4, and white is just like waiting for something very unusual to happen. For example, here after rook g4, just playing the move like king g2, I think, and there is nothing for white to afraid here. For example, h4, knight f6, rook f6. It's really beautiful tactics. Queen takes queen g4, and here maybe white will win. So black just took the rook. Queen takes f5. Also e takes f5 was a possibility for white, and I think it's really drawish position because these 2 pawns are double pawns, and there is no advantage for black. So queen takes f5, also strong move. King h6, queen f3, and white just wait for something to happen. And f5 was happened. Queen d6, queen f6, takes here, takes queen d3, and some checks. King g2, and black is just a pawn up. But of course with this queen and the king is not safe on g6. There will be a lot of checks here. Like you see, takes, and checks is coming. You see so much checks, and there is nothing to afraid for white. And Abasov bring home the draw with white pieces in this round 4 of candidates tournament. So what we can say, until now we have Abasov with 1.5 out of 4, Firouza also the same, 1.5 out of 4. We have Fabiano Caruana with 2.5 out of 4, Vidit Gukesh also 2.5. We have Vidit with 1.5 out of 4, and Nepomniachtchi, the leader of the tournament, with 3 out of 4. Brilliant start for the runner-up. The last time we Dingley ran Nepomniachtchi from Russia. And we have Praggnanandhaa with 50% with 2 out of 4, and Nakamura with 1.5 out of 4. So let's see what happened in round 5 of this tournament. We will see it in the next video. Until then, I really want to welcome you to do subscribe for my channel. You can like the videos, it really helped me, it's improving me. Also share this channel to your friends and families, and I'm here for you. You can comment, you can ask questions, whatever you want. I'm here to have fun with you and learn chess, learn the best sport ever. So I'm with you, and let's meet in the next video of round 5. Who will be our champion? Who will be our surprise? So this round was only for Nepomniachtchi. Let's do it. Bye bye.